attempting to recover an Electron rocket out of the air with their helicopter. On your screen now is a live the OHB for Sweden. It is going to be going up to a 585-kilometer sun synchronous orbit. And it's going to be a small microsatellite with a lifetime expected of about 5 years, and it has a fixed solar array on board. We are keeping a close eye for any updates from Rocket Lab. We're just waiting for Rocket Lab to get spooled up in the next couple of minutes. But if you guys have questions, you can send us those in the chat. We'll work on answering those live. Wouldn't be a launch day if we didn't mention, it is launch day, so you can as well. See lots of people tuning in here while we wait for some of your questions. We got Scotland tuning in. Great to see you. We got Thailand, Mississippi. We got Alabama and Maine and Toronto and Pennsylvania. First time from Siberia. Welcome. Billy Bob. Just catching up on the chat there. Got Fresno, California. California, great to see you. Indiana, thanks for being here. More Toronto, great to see you here. From India as well, thank you so much. In the Netherlands. If you're just joining us, though, welcome to our live launch coverage of Electron's Catch Me If You Can mission. We went live a little bit earlier because we had a live ground track of the helicopter, but as things tend to do with live streaming, right when we went live, it was here for about a minute, and the helicopters dropped off of radar. Timothy, thanks so much for being a member there for 3 months. Appreciate it. Todd's in Australia. Blonde in Perth, Western Australia. Brian in Florida and St. Pete. More India, more Australia, San Diego. Great to have you here. I know some of you in Australia had a little bit more nerve-wracking night with that Chinese booster. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome here to the launch pad, or maybe good afternoon or evening, depending where you're joining us from. You're joining us for our live launch coverage of Rocket Lab's Catch Us If You Can mission. We are keeping a close eye on it as we work towards the launch window opening here, 27 minutes, 50 seconds and counting until when we expect to have liftoff from the Mejia Peninsula in New Zealand. Rocket Lab's getting spooled up to go live here, so we'll be patching them in momentarily to listen in to their team for updates on the status of Electron. ahead of today's launch opportunity. If it's your first time here, though, welcome here at the Launch Pad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And take a moment and engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, or space news update. You are pushing us to that 100K mark so quickly. We had some plans to do like a 100K stream, but we don't have any of the supplies we were planning on, and it looks like that might have to happen later today. So share us out if you want to. If you enjoy what we do, encourage your friends and family to check us out. And if they enjoy space, subscribe so they never miss anything happening in space. But you're here for a Rocket Lab launch, and we are now counting down less than 27 minutes and counting. So you can see the animations have begun. Rocket Lab's getting all spooled up to begin today's live launch coverage. And we'll be listening in to Rocket Lab Mission Control to have updates on today's rocket. But today's mission is launching from Launch Complex 1B at the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand for the customer OHB Sweden for the Swedish National Space Agency. This is a new Electron rocket, but they will, for only the second time in Rocket Lab's history, be attempting to recover the Electron rocket out of the air using a helicopter. The first time we saw this was earlier this year. This is the 9th launch for Rocket Lab of 2022. The 5th launch from Launch Complex 1B, which came online this year, and we are at the 153rd orbital launch attempt in its entirety of all of space this year. So very quickly seeing that number increase. On board today, there's just one small satellite for the customer. The Catch Me If You Can mission is a dedicated launch for the OHB Sweden and Swedish National Space Agency to carry a single satellite into a 585-kilometer sun-synchronous orbit. It will have a couple sensors on it, as well as a fixed solar panel to detect atmospheric waves and patterns in the Earth's upper atmosphere, mainly between the 75 and the 110 kilometer altitudes of the atmosphere. I'm sure we'll learn more during today's live stream from Rocket Lab as they continue to get ready to count down. The helicopter left Christchurch about 35 minutes or so ago and is out at the recovery site. We've pulled down that live tracker of the helicopter as it has gone off air for a little bit longer than we expected, but that's also because of how far off the coast it is here today for recovery and also for the safety of the rocket. If you guys have questions at any point throughout today's stream, you can send us those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. Of course, you can head on over to tlpnetwork.com/launches to check out every launch that's coming up, as well as recent ones that you may have missed. But you can also get your mission briefing for today's. We'll drop that link in the chat for you if you want to click on that. That's where you can learn more about today's mission. Every mission we release a detailed TLP mission briefing, and these are getting more and more information as we go. I know we got people tuning in all over the world, and we appreciate you guys being here and supporting what we do. I see we got California, a few Californias. We got India, Netherlands, we got Ohio, we got Florida, we got a few Australias and New Zealand, San Diego, Ohio. Great to see you all here with us bright and early this morning. I know there was many of us that were up through the night with not only the rollout of Artemis 1, but also that Chinese booster that kept jumping around where it was going to crash land. A little update on both. Artemis 1 is back out at Launch Complex 39B ahead of its launch attempt on Monday, November 14th. Everything looked like it went well during rollout, and that Chinese booster successfully crashed down. Successfully, I guess would be the word. Crashed down in the Pacific Ocean, the South Central Pacific. 2 re-entry points were actually detected by U.S. Space Command as it made its re-entry there, but did go down over the ocean. No photos or videos, which is a great sign that it wasn't over any islands or any land, so people were not at risk, and it's now sitting at the bottom of the ocean. This is not the only time that we will see this booster kind of tracking have to be done. Starting in 2024, China will be launching one of these rockets every about 2 to 2.5 months, so we hope you'll join us for those. For those that took part in Booster Bingo, make sure you're checking your emails. For those that were in the right square, which we'll tweet out an announcement here in a little bit, you will be notified on how you can get that promo code and access that exclusive limited edition I Guessed It Right t-shirt with the 2 re-entry zones. There are actually going to be a couple squares that qualify, so make sure we'll stay tuned for that. Wiki Kids asking, will you be covering the launch of Artemis 1? What's your take on it? Go or no go? I hope my take is go because I'm boarding a flight in a week. to head on down there. So most of the TLP crew is jumping back on planes from across Canada, United States, and England, and heading back to Florida for another launch attempt. We'll be bringing you full live coverage from the NASA Kennedy Space Center press site, the Banana Creek launch facility, the Kennedy Space Center visitor center, and around the Space Coast leading up to launch and on launch day. So we hope you will join us live for that. I'll be providing live commentary from just about 3 miles away for it. But our hope is go. As you can see on the side of me here, Rocket Lab's getting all spooled up, which means we're getting ready to listen in to Rocket Lab Mission Control on an update as we count down 22 minutes and counting until the 30-second mission for Rocket Lab, Catch Me If You Can. You can continue to send in your questions throughout today's stream. Just make sure you're tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll be answering those live. But as always, let's listen in to Rocket Lab Mission Control. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that subscribe button, hit the like, and share out the stream as we count down 21 minutes, 40 seconds and counting until Rocket Lab attempts to catch an Electron rocket out of the air with a helicopter. Let's listen in to Rocket Lab Mission Control.
Welcome to the Rocket Lab launch coverage for today's mission, our 30-second Electron launch and our next recovery mission that we have aptly named Catch Me If You Can. You can see the Electron rocket on your screen as it stands ready for the countdown to liftoff from Rocket Lab's Pad B at Launch Complex 1 in Mahia, New Zealand. My name is Muriel Baker, and I will be with you through today's launch and recovery attempt from Rocket Lab's Mission Control Center. We are several hours into launch operations now, and about 20 minutes or so to launch right at the top of today's launch window with the T0 set for 06:27 New Zealand local time or 15:27 UTC. We have had a clean run through the count and remain on track to launch right on time today. And today's launch includes a single satellite headed to low Earth orbit for the Swedish National Space Agency. I'll tell you more about the MATS science research mission shortly. But excitingly, today is the day we make our next attempt at catching Electron with a helicopter as it returns from space. For those of you unfamiliar with our recovery program, we are evolving Electron into the world's first reusable orbital small rocket by using a helicopter to catch Electron's first stage as it descends back to Earth after launch. Right now, our recovery helicopter is stationed over the Pacific Ocean off New Zealand's east coast, waiting for Electron's launch. And from mission control, the pilots will receive the signal from our recovery team to move in and tail the returning rocket as it descends under parachute before they make an attempt to hook onto Electron's parachute line, secure the rocket underneath the helicopter, and transport it back to land. We will have cameras on board Electron's first stage feeding us live footage of today's recovery attempt. There is also a live camera feed from the helicopter that we'll share, but we do expect some dropouts in the video footage from both the rocket and the helicopter during today's operations. If the feed freezes, don't panic. We'll bring it back up as quickly as possible, and we will stay with you on this program to bring you updates from Mission Control. We are still obviously in the test phase of our recovery program, so everything learned today is a useful step toward the ultimate goal of catching and reflying Electron. In case the catch is missed today, we have prepared to recover it from the ocean, like we have done on previous recovery missions, so we'll bring you updates on those operations too. Using a helicopter to catch a falling rocket is obviously not as simple as it sounds. It's a complex operation that requires precision, perfect timing, and for our helicopter pilots, complete calm under pressure and a steady hand. But here's how they'll do it.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of Rocket Lab's Catch Me If You Can mission. We are now 18 minutes, 52 seconds and counting away from liftoff, and Rocket Lab walking us through how recovery will work of their Electron rocket. They showing that helicopter will, ahead of launch, go out to the designated recovery zone. Electron will then launch from Launch Complex 1A or 1B, the Mejia Peninsula, on its mission carrying its payload up into orbit. The first stage will have MECO and then stage separation. And then it'll begin its journey back down to Earth. It'll make a re-entry through the atmosphere, as Peter Beck and Rocket Lab like to call it, hit the wall. It's very hard to go through the atmosphere the other way, especially with a booster like this. It'll come back through, and this is when we will see that re-entry heating occur right around the engine. So they had to design Electron to be able to withstand that. And that is why we see some of the different colors on the newer Rocket Lab ones that are for recovery. A drogue chute will deploy, followed with a full main chute, and this is where the helicopter will go into play. The helicopter will now try to spot the booster descending through the higher altitudes and maneuver itself into position where it can see the booster below it. It then will deploy a line with a large hook on it and attempt to actually hook the booster's parachute line. That is where the helicopter will attach on and then scoop it out of the air, relieving the support of the parachute, and then they'll bring it back to the launch facility. Last time they tried this, they were successful at catching it, but they did have to release it due to some unforecasted stresses on the helicopter. So we hope to see how it goes today.
Our motivation for making Electron a reusable rocket is to lower manufacturing costs and create more launch opportunities for small satellite missions, like the one on board Electron today for the Swedish National Space Agency through OHB Sweden. Called MATS, the satellite's acronym stands for Mesospheric Air Glow Aerosol Tomography and Spectroscopy, a bit of a mouthful, and its mission is to investigate atmospheric waves above Earth to better understand how our planet's upper layer influences wind and weather patterns here on the ground. A bit like how waves in the ocean are generated in different ways, can travel and strengthen over long distances and influence water conditions at the beach, waves in the atmosphere can link together different parts of our climate system, and MATS is on a mission to find out more. Here's more about the satellite and the teams behind it.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here. We are now just 15 minutes, 20 seconds and counting until the launch of the 9th Electron mission of 2022 from the Mejia Peninsula, and hopefully the second recovery of an Electron, the first successful one using a helicopter. On your screen now, they're talking through today's dedicated payload that's on board, a singular satellite on board for OHB Sweden and the Swedish National Space Agency. It's a satellite going up to 585 kilometer sun synchronous orbit, and it's a micro satellite weighing under 50 kilograms. The scientific payload is designed to have an on-orbit lifetime of about 5 years and has a fixed solar panel on it, along with a number of instruments that will be used to design and observe designed to observe atmospheric waves and patterns in the Earth's upper atmosphere. Excuse me, it's been a long night. Between 75 and 110 kilometers. The satellite has two main instruments on board, the LIM imager and the nadir imager. With those imagers, multiple mirrors and beam splitters will be able to observe clouds forming in the mesosphere and lower thermosphere, as well as atmospheric airglow from the oxygen A band. By imaging these phenomena, they will be able to gather new research about the dynamic MLT region of the Earth's atmosphere to better understand the interactions between these atmospheres and the wind and weather below. If you're just joining us and have questions, you can send those to us in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. And we'll be trying to answer those to the best of our ability here today. And if you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, really does help us out. Let's see if we can get to that 500 mark maybe before liftoff. Mars 2028 is asking, will Rocket Lab also try to catch Electron boosters launched from Wallops? In the future, we expect so. We don't expect Wallops to necessarily be a super active facility until Neutron's flying, but they are going to launch Electrons from there. So once they can finalize this, yes, that is something we're expecting. They would need a secondary helicopter and stuff for that. Joe Dog's asking if they can perfect this catch method. Do you think SpaceX will attempt this method with fairings? That's a really interesting idea. I don't think so. I think SpaceX is pretty set in the ways of how they're doing. They have a pretty good track record. They've lost a couple fairings recently, but other than that, they have a really good track record with those recoveries of just splashing down. So they'll go that. Let's listen back into Rocket Lab Mission Control ahead of a go, no-go poll.
And to all operators, this is LD on mission code. We are proceeding now with a go, no-go sequence. Stage.
Stage is go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
GNC is go.
Recon.
Recon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET.
MET is go.
MM.
MM is go.
Recovery.
Recovery is go.
LD sub.
LD sub is go.
The go, no-go sequence is complete. We are currently T-minus 11 minutes and 24 seconds in counting. We go for the terminal count at T-minus 10 minutes. And from this time on, the freewheel hold procedure is in effect.
And that is what we were wanting to hear, a go to enter terminal count in just a minute from now. Really exciting to hear there in that go, no go. Recovery is go. That's one we don't normally hear. And there's a live view of the launch pad on your screen. You can see that silver Rocket Lab Electron rocket with the red color, the red meaning recovery, the silver to help with re-entry. Excited to see another one of these out at the pad and hopefully having successful recovery in just over 10.5 minutes from now.
To enable today's recovery attempt, Electron is a two-stage to orbit launch vehicle that stands 18 meters tall. Starting from the bottom, that's where 9 of its 3D printed Rutherford engines are located. Together, they power the first stage, the section of the rocket from the engines up to the red band you see on your screen there that indicates where the first stage is connected to the second stage. It's this first stage of Electron that we'll be attempting to recover during today's mission, while the rest of the rocket, that second stage and the kick stage carrying the payload, travels on to low Earth orbit. Now, around that interstage area, there is a reaction control system that includes tiny thrusters on the rocket's exterior that help reposition the first stage as it descends back to Earth. Packaged inside the top of the first stage also are 2 parachutes to slow down the first stage for the recovery attempt, the smaller drogue parachute that deploys first, and the larger main parachute that our recovery helicopter will attempt to connect with. Rounding off Electron at the top, we have the second stage with a 10th Rutherford engine. We optimize with a large exhaust nozzle for the conditions of space. And connected to the second stage is the rocket's third stage, which we call the kick stage, which has the MATS satellite attached on top. Now, this kick stage has its own little engine called the Curie engine, which is used to circularize the orbit it's deployed to before the payload is deployed itself, marking the end of the mission. Now, Electron might be considered a small rocket, but snagging a 1-ton object falling from the sky is a big ask for a helicopter, and one of the challenges for our recovery team was finding one large enough to safely catch it and bring it back to land. Our Sikorsky S-92 helicopter, though, is up to the task. It's one of the few helicopters large and reliable enough to catch a rocket mid-air. It's capable of lifting up to 5 times the weight of Electron's first stage. The Sikorsky S-92 global fleet has accumulated more than 2 million flight hours and completed more than 91,000 search and rescue missions. Its other missions have included coastal and border control, emergency response, disaster relief, and head of state transportation, and now catching rockets in the air. The helicopter flies with a crew of 3, a pilot, a co-pilot, and a rocket spotter. To complete its rocket-catching mission, the Sikorsky S-92 has been modified to include extended-range fuel tanks for open ocean flights, a capture hook on a long line to catch the parachute line attached to Electron's booster, pilot assists for recovery operations, including a bubble window to better see the returning rocket, and displays with position and direction information for the intercept, along with some other minor modifications.
Fantastic wide shot of the rocket
To practice
lab launch
our
facility.
rocket catching skills, we have carried out several helicopter tests and achieved some major mission milestones on our road to reusability. Here is the timeline of our recovery operations to date.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are now 6 minutes, 20 seconds and counting until liftoff of Rocket Lab's 30-second Electron mission. We are counting down towards that launch, but even more so counting down to their second recovery attempt of a Electron out of the air with the helicopter. The helicopter is out in position. We are keeping an eye on our tracker there for that as we count down these final minutes. We had a go, no go to enter the terminal count, and recovery is go. Weather is looking good. Winds are good to perform today's recovery attempt. If it's your first time here, though, welcome here at the Launchpad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. Take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. You can also head on over to tlpnetwork.com/launches. That's where you can stay up to date on all upcoming launches so you never miss another one and know whether or not we will be covering it live as well. Rocket Lab running through a video showing their preparations for recovery. They have recovered out of the ocean, but they're hoping to start to finalize this recovery out of the air because it gives them a much faster turnaround for their vehicle for it. So excited to hopefully see another successful launch here. Now T-minus 5 minutes, 5 seconds and counting. Electron is basically fully fueled. We can see that strong back is retracted away and Electron is ready for launch. If you have questions throughout today's stream, you can continue sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those. The Sikorsky helicopter is a really great helicopter option and is ready to go. Now stationed a few hundred kilometers downrange, ready to recover today's Electron first stage out of the air. Now 3 minutes, 20 seconds and counting from liftoff of Electron's Rocket Lab's 32nd Electron mission.
Get back this latest Electron and assess its condition after launch. The first stage will be inspected inch by inch to discover how well its components survived the return to Earth and what could be a candidate for reflight testing. We are now heading into the final countdown to liftoff of Catch Me If You Can with just over 2 minutes on the clock. The launch range is clear, Electron and the MAT satellite are healthy, and our recovery team is ready and in position for launch and recovery. Shortly, Electron's flight computer will take over and run down the clock as the final pre-launch milestones are reached. Then it's on to the 10-second countdown to liftoff for Catch Me If You Can. Let's hand it over now to Mission Control.
So we are listening now into Mission Control comms for the final 2 minutes of the count. 2 minutes, 10 seconds and counting.
AVPs are on internal power. Vehicle's fully on internal power. AFTS is green and enabled for flight.
Oxalate is complete. System is in recirculation. Anti-geyser is disabled.
T-minus 60 seconds. T-minus 50 seconds.
Stage 1, stage 2, rest for flight.
High flow engine purge enabled.
T-minus 40 seconds.
Deluge is activated.
$20 seconds.
And we are T-minus 19 seconds and counting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Beginning to pitch over.
Stage 1, propulsion, nominal.
Rocket Lab Launch Complex 1 and is on its way to space carrying the MAT satellite. Our rocket recovery attempt is also now officially underway. Coming up on supersonic speeds, Electron will be traveling faster than the speed of sound as it approaches its first mission milestone, maximum aerodynamic pressure. Electron's Rutherford engines will throttle down slightly to pass this pressure point, and once cleared, we should hear the call from Mission Control that the rocket has passed max Q.
Vehicle is supersonic. Approaching max Q. And vehicle is cleared max Q.
Stage 1.
There we go.
propulsion,
As expected,
holding
Electron has cleared that first milestone and is continuing nominally. Electron's Rutherford engines will now throttle back up as the mission continues on, and all looks nominal for propulsion there with that beautiful view of LC1 below. In about a minute, we will reach the point in the launch when
Stage one
Electron
guidance is
separates
nominal.
itself. Known as stage separation, the Rutherford engines on the first stage will shut down for the rocket to safely separate before the engine on the second stage can fire up and carry on with the mission. The calls for these events will proceed as MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, and then second stage engine start. And here is when our recovery team
Stage one
begin
propulsion
their
nominal.
countdown to
Standby
the
for
helicopter
MECO in
catch,
roughly
as
30
the
seconds.
first stage will begin its journey back to Earth. Standing by now, though, for those calls.
"15 seconds to staging.
Entered burnout detect mode.
MECO confirm.
Stage separation successful.
Stage 2 ignition.
And as you can see, we have had a successful MECO and stage separation, followed by the engine on
Stage two
Electron's
propulsion
second
nominal.
stage igniting successfully. You can see that by the red hot glow of the Rutherford nozzle on your screen there. For recovery, the first stage is now beginning its journey back home.
Discharge
The
nominal.
trajectories for both stages are looking good so far. The next mission event will be fairing separation on the second stage, coming up in just a few moments.
Fairing jettison succeeded.
In fact, actually, there it goes. Electron's fairing has been deployed, and Matt is now exposed
Stage
to
two
space
guidance
while
is
remaining
nominal.
attached to the rocket's second stage as it continues on the path to orbit. The vehicle is now traveling at a speed of more than 8,000 kilometers an hour with an altitude of 129 kilometers. Meanwhile, Electron's first stage continues its migration over the South Pacific Ocean. When it separated from the second stage, it was traveling at such high speed that its trajectory continued upward from the momentum. But in another minute or so, it is expected to reach the highest point of that arc, otherwise known as the apogee, and from there, descend toward the capture zone, where our recovery helicopter is ready and on standby to proceed. We should hear the call out from Mission Control, and we'll keep up that first stage camera view on your left for as long as we can.
An absolutely incredible view there on the left side of your screen. That is a view on the first stage of the Electron rocket as it tumbles back towards Earth, and good old Rocket Lab pulling in some live telemetry there. We're watching that first stage heading up towards its apogee point before it begins making its descent. At this time, the helicopter will be doing its final preparations. It's in the location where they believe it will come down within a region. Once the Rocket Lab first stage has made its re-entry through the atmosphere, then it is on to the helicopter to try to pick out this very small rocket under parachute in the sky, approach, make sure it's stable, and then they will make the decision on whether they will actually make a go. And this is some incredible footage, very similar to footage we used to see with the SRBs from Shuttle, of a long booster coming back into the atmosphere. Some absolutely incredible shots here from Rocket Lab this morning as they attempt their only second recovery using the helicopter. They've recovered electrons before, but normally we do not get to see that first stage re-entry. This is only really the second time we're getting to see this, so very exciting shots there. The second stage continuing on. Next major event for the second stage is battery hot swap. They use electricity for the engines and the systems, and two of those batteries are about to die. So rather than carrying dead weight, Rocket Lab jettisons them and swaps to two brand new batteries and starts to drain the power off of those. The first stage of Electron has now reached its apogee and is beginning to descend back down to Earth, and you'll be able to see that live view on the left side, hopefully staying as long as they can. As it goes through re-entry. Obviously, there's generally always some level of communication blackout through the re-entry in the plasma, but we'll hopefully have a great live view. A beautiful day down in New Zealand for today's launch. Weather absolutely perfect for recovery here today, and hopefully a successful test. Now, if you were watching earlier this year when they attempted their first recovery, they were successfully able to catch the booster on their first attempt. The helicopter went, swooped it out with the hook. There were, though, stresses on the helicopter that were not expected, and the commander of the helicopter made the decision to release the parachute to make sure the helicopter was safe, take the data they had, review, and that's where we are now today. That booster was recovered, though, following being disconnected from the helicopter. The parachute did reopen and still splashed the booster down into the ocean safely. So even if today's helicopter attempt is not successful, we can't catch it, or it catches and releases it, it is still a successful recovery mission if the parachute's open and we have a soft splashdown in the ocean just off the coast of New Zealand. We're now at L plus 7 minutes. We've had battery hot swap, it looks like there. We are now continuing on towards that re-entry. Kind of becoming normal, seeing an Electron's performance. They've had a really great year of success. After a few failures last year, they've really ironed their systems out. We'll be keeping a close eye on that second stage, but mainly on that first stage as it begins its re-entry back to the Earth's atmosphere. We're going to listen back into Rocket Lab Mission Control. If you haven't yet, though, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, and engage that like button. Let's encourage YouTube to encourage the rocket as it makes this recovery attempt. Let's listen back into Mission Control. There's that battery hot swap on camera there. Waiting for main chute deployment here.
HVP discharge holding nominal.
And that looks like we've got chute deployment.
Stage 2 guidance and terminal, 25 seconds to go.
Oh, so this view you are seeing right now actually is from the helicopter. This is the hook hanging below the helicopter that is heading towards the recovery point. Teams now are looking to spot Electron under parachute and attempt to approach and make sure that it's stable.
Stage 3 separation confirmed.
We've got separation from that second stage.
Transfer orbit.
And we've got a good orbit for payload deployment.
There we go. That's the call for SECO or second engine cutoff, and stage separation has been confirmed. That means MATS and Electron's kick stage have commenced their first pass around Earth in its initial orbit. Around 40 minutes into this coasting phase, the kick stage's engine will light up to move it into a circular orbit position where payload deployment will be performed. We'll come back to that final mission action. But while MATS takes a cruise, we are full screen with the camera view from the helicopter as our pilots move in for the mid-air rocket catch attempt.
This is your first time here. Welcome. This is something very rare to see. We are watching as Rocket Lab is attempting to recover a booster using a helicopter, scooping the parachute out of the sky. Now, this can happen very quickly. We do not have a wide shot.
Parachute deployment and the time it would take Electron.
We do not have a wide shot, so we won't see the booster coming under parachute. It's just going to very quickly probably see the parachute lines go by. This is what we saw last time, but we are going to keep a close eye on there, and we'll keep listening into mission control as hopefully we may hear some updates from within the helicopter. But at this time, the helicopter is attempting to spot the booster and approach and make sure that it is in a stable, safe descent before they approach. Safety of the helicopter, of course, is the first priority.
Water instead today. To make sure you catch Electron gliding into view, keep your eye on the edge of the screen where we expect to see it today.
And see that hook hanging below the helicopter here
Just a note on
swinging
the soft
around.
water splashdown I mentioned before. If we did that today, that would not be a failure for our recovery program. In fact, we've performed several of them across our missions to date, and most recently, we were able to refire a Rutherford engine that had been returned from the ocean. Right now, though, we have an anxious wait with our fingers crossed until we might see Electron again on our screen. Our rocket spotter on board the helicopter has a few more tools to help them with this task, obviously. They've got this view and the view out the window, of course, but also those display screens that plot theirs and Electron's positions with telemetry and where they might intersect for that catch attempt.
I think many of us are having almost flashback moments to the early SpaceX Falcon 9 landings. This is something very different, but something very exciting to see another reusable rocket coming online. And if they are able to perfect this method of catching it with a helicopter, that will make Electron reusable much quicker and a lot easier because they can just fly it back.
While the Sikorsky has been positioned out here over the ocean during mission operations, it's got a range of 950 kilometers. That means it can safely capture and return Electron to land following a successful catch. And now that Electron's first stage is empty of propellant, it will weigh approximately a ton in dry weight. Our Sikorsky, though, is rated to be able to carry up to 5 times that, so we've got good margins for a catch and carry back to land.
On your screen, there's a live view of where the second stage currently is. But of course, keeping a close eye on that left side of your screen. You can see that hook swaying. That's showing the helicopter making some larger turns, which it can do if it needs to catch as well. But their hope would be to come slowly
Rocket
over
Lab
top.
team back here at Mission Control, who are watching as anxiously as I am to see that Electron glide into view. Whether they've touched this mission themselves or have supported across some other functions through the business, everyone is just as invested in seeing Electron brought back to the factory. The recovery team themselves are stationed in various support locations. Some are in the Mission Control Center, others are on our recovery vessel on the ocean near the capture zone, and of course we have the helicopter pilots as part of that catch attempt too.
That helicopter definitely making some moves, as you can see the sun's reflection on the ocean below changing, and that hook moving quite a bit as well. Hopefully they'll pull that back up full screen. We like following the second stage, but we want to see the helicopter camera. Coming up to 15 minutes since liftoff. The third stage well on its way in its coast phase.
For those of you just tuning in, a quick reminder that we have had a successful first part of the mission, and the MATS satellite, as you can see on your right-hand side with that graphic, is in a transfer orbit on its way to its final destination.
We've got a poll up in the chat there. Will Rocket Lab recover Electron with the helicopter? Yes, they'll fly it back. Yes, but then they'll release for safety, or no. Let us know what you think in that poll, or keeping a close eye on that left side of your screen. Hopefully see Rocket Lab for the second time scoop a booster out of the air with a helicopter. This is some next level fishing, some sky fishing. So a great question in the chat. Did they give an estimated time for the catch? No. So the catch is all based on the helicopter team's decision and discretion. They first have to find the booster under the parachute, approach, make sure it's stable, check out wind conditions, and then decide a path forward on attempting a recovery if they want to. And then they make the decisions. This is not even a mission control decision. This is exclusively to the helicopter team that they are the ones on site. They have the visuals and are in there, and they make the decisions on whether they will go for an attempt or not. So we do not have an exact time. We do know they have a smaller window of when they're able to do so. Obviously, the booster is descending under that parachute, so they have a window of time they can do so, because they do not want to attempt to catch and it fail and the parachute not be able to reopen and safely land the booster into the ocean. So they do have a limited time window. Not all those details have been fully publicized as of yet. It's still a very early program, but in the future, as we see this happen more and more, we'll be able to start
Hello
to
again from Mission
make our
Control. We have
assumptions.
just had an update from the pilots, and unfortunately, it looks like we are not going to bring Electron home dry today, but we do have the backup option of an ocean splashdown. We'll bring you updates on that ocean operation in the hours to come, but for now, we are going to leave you with the views of Electron's kick stage as it moves through its transfer orbit on the way to payload deployment for MATS. We'll be back for payload deployment at around T plus 50 minutes. See you then.
And not the news we were hoping to hear. They have waved off today's helicopter recovery attempt. The helicopter team has made that decision. This could be for a number of reasons at this time. We don't have more. Peter Beck will likely tweet some stuff with the Rocket Lab team following a review over the next few hours on why this has occurred. But they made an attempt and they were not able to do so. This is a new type of recovery, just like SpaceX. They did not recover their first Falcon 9s. And then when they did make some attempts on landing, they didn't all go well either. Electron will still safely splash down in the ocean and be scooped up by their recovery ship and brought back. It'll just be wet and go through more of a refurbishment. Rocket Lab having just successfully refired one of their recovered engines for the first time during testing. So starting to bring that reusable Electron program online and going through the testing to make sure they are flight ready. But not the news we were hoping for. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. We're going to be staying live through deployment, so make sure you're staying with us. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. We'll see if they can squeeze another attempt out by the end of the year. It all depends on what mission they're doing and what boosters are available. So we'll have to wait and see, but it might be until early next year that we see another helicopter recovery attempt, depending on what the issues were with today's recovery. While we've got about 30 minutes until deployment, I'm going to take some time to answer your questions. So you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. While we wait for your questions to come in, we wanted to remind you, you can head on over to the launchpad.store. That's where you can get all of your TLP space gear. We've got our Rocket Lab Neutron shirt, All Systems Go, Eat, Sleep, Launch, Land, Repeat, and a bunch of other stuff. And you can definitely take a moment, check that out. We've got global shipping available, and of course, we're coming up to the holiday season, so it's a great time there. Still got a couple weeks that you can order that we are guaranteeing it to arrive prior to Christmas. We do have global shipping available and manufacturing around the world, so it's not all being shipped out of just the United States. So if you're in Europe or Australia, we do have distribution there as well, so helping to cut down on those shipping times and shipping costs. Catching up on the chat here. Again, if you guys have questions, you can send those to us in the chat. We'll work on answering those live. So you can see there they've updated that side line there as we work towards that Curie burn and then payload deployment at about the 50-minute mark. White Rabbit, how close are we to 100K? We are 613 away. Wow, I haven't said how little that number was. That is very close. Yes, we are extremely grateful that we are approaching that 100K mark. It's not something I don't think any of our team fully expected to happen this quickly, if ever. So thank you so much for all of your guys' support and making my career come true, and also some of our teams. So we'll be doing some 100K celebrations. We will be going live for a countdown to 100K when we get a little bit closer for it. We'll have some of our team on comms for that stream as well. And then we'll have a big 100K celebration, and we're going to do a meetup down in Florida around the Artemis 1 window as well. So make sure you stay tuned to all of that. Mars 2028, did SpaceX recover the fairings for Falcon Heavy? I don't believe I saw confirmation that they had, but generally speaking, yes. We'll wait to see the support ship come back in. The last couple missions, they have lost some fairings, one of the two, but we'll wait and see how Falcon Heavy went. We're waiting for Bob to get back into port. We're going to take a little bit of a commentary break as we wait for payload deployment. About 25 minutes or so from now, we should see that. So stay with us right here on the launch pad as we continue towards payload deployment of the Catch Me If You Can mission with Rocket Lab. Stay with us.
And while the second stage continued on its journey, Electron's first stage began its journey back to Earth. And so far, a flawless primary mission for today's launch for OHB Sweden and the National Space Agency in Sweden too. But unfortunately, though, we are not bringing Electron home dry on this mission due to some telemetry loss from the rocket's first stage during re-entry. As standard procedure for safety, we pull the helicopter out of the recovery zone if this happens, so we couldn't attempt a catch today. But this is what test programs are all about, pushing hardware and systems to their limit and iterating. Fortunately, though, we do have an ocean recovery as a backup option, as we've successfully demonstrated several times now, and we can confirm that Electron completed a safe splashdown. So the recovery vessel will be moving in to collect the stage very soon. Taking what we've learnt today and pushing toward the ultimate goal of launch, catch, and repeat, we will be back with the helicopter for another mid-air capture attempt. In the meantime, though, our mission to deploy the MATS satellite for the Swedish National Space Agency has continued on to its destination in low Earth orbit. The kick stage has completed its first pass in an elliptical orbit of Earth, and we're now waiting for its Curie engine to ignite and position the kick stage in sun-synchronous orbit at a 585-kilometer altitude, where we will deploy the MATS payload. Those events should happen in quick succession after the kick stage's Curie lights up. Let's bring up this animated view of that payload deployment and listen in to mission control for the callouts.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are now 53 minutes, 50 seconds following launch of Rocket Lab's 32nd Electron mission. Unfortunately, unsuccessful attempt to catch today's booster. They didn't even try due to telemetry lost from the first stage during its re-entry, and their protocol is to remove the helicopter from the recovery zone at that time to protect the helicopter. And there we have payload deployment confirmed 54 minutes, 10 seconds after launch. That is going to do it for us here today in our live launch coverage of Catch Me If You Can, Rocket Lab's 32nd Electron mission. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. And make sure you head on over to our shop. Use promo code LAUNCHDAY to get 10% off of everything in the TLP shop. You can join us over on our Discord if you want to join part of our awesome space community, and follow us on Twitter to follow along with space news as it happens. But that's going to do it for us here today. Here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And this is Zach from TLP Network Studios signing off. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.